Hi, today we're going to talk about less than, greater than, and equal to. Before you move on to your practice pages, I want to make sure that you really understand what that means. And you probably know more than you think you do. The tricky part is that in less than, greater than, we use symbols, and those are a little bit tricky to remember. But let's look at a couple numbers. Let's take the numbers, let's say 3 and 7. Now, you already know that if you're going down the number line, the first number that you come to would be the 3. And you'd have to keep on counting. You would go from the 3 to the 7. And so that tells you that the number 7 is a higher number than 3. It is a greater number than 3, so that we know 7 is greater than 3. Okay? But what we also know is that because the 3 came first, it is actually less than 7. All right, so that's where we're starting to talk about less than and greater than. All right, so let's go ahead and look at a couple other numbers. Let's do the numbers 9 and 12. Okay, so again, if you look at your number line, if you're going down, you see the number 9, there's the number 9, and then you would have to keep counting on to get to the number 12. So that tells us that 12 is a greater number. 12 is a higher number. So we know that 12 is greater than 9. But we also know that 9 is a lower number, so it is less than. Doesn't matter if I turn it around, switch it around. So let's say 12 and 9. Doesn't matter which order I put those two numbers in, I still know that 12 is the greater number of the two numbers. All right, so now we want to focus on some symbols. And we're going to be using a less than, greater than, and equal to symbols. And that's the part that's a little bit tricky to remember. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and look at Mr. Alligator and have Mr. Alligator help us with some of these problems. All right, one thing I like to do is I like to use the Mr. Alligator poem because it kind of explains a little bit or gives you a kind of understanding of how to use the symbols that we're going to be talking about, the less than, greater than, and equal to symbols. So let's go ahead and look at the alligator poem. This is Alligator, Alligator, Chomp the Greatest Number. That's the name of the poem, so let's go ahead and look at it. Alligator, alligator, hungry as can be, look around and what do you see? See the two numbers to your right and to your left. Which of the numbers is the best? You're hungry, this we know, so find the greatest number and don't be slow. The greatest number is what you want. It is the number that you will chomp. Alligator, alligator, hungry as can be, chomp the greatest number that you see. And the reason that we use the alligator is because it shows you here your alligator teeth. If you have a greater number over here, the greatest number is on this side, Mr. Alligator is going to chomp that greatest number. So my symbol is going to be pointing with the alligator teeth towards the greater number, the larger number. Now, if the larger number is on this side, the greatest number is on this side, my alligator teeth are going to be chomping the number this side. So let's go ahead and do some problems with Mr. Alligator. Okay, so what we do is we look at the two numbers. So let's pick two numbers. Let's say 5 and 13. And we have two numbers and we need to decide which number is lower, which the less than, the greater than, and we need to figure out which symbol we're going to put there. So it gets a little bit tricky. So we're going to use Mr. Alligator, and remember the rule with Mr. Alligator is he chomps the greatest number. So we know in our mind, thinking about the number line, out of 5 and 13, we know that 13 is the greatest number. And we know that 5 is the lower number, so it's less than 13. But I might not remember all that. What I do want to do, though, is use the correct symbol. And so I'm going to think about this, and I'm going to say, okay, I know Mr. Alligator's teeth are going to chomp that greater number, so my symbol is going to go this way. Now, what I have to remember also, though, is that when I am reading this problem, I want to start from the left, and I'm going to read it this way. Just like when you're reading a book and you read left to right, it's the same thing. So here's how I would read this. I would say 5 is less than 13. Again, I know 13 is a greater number. I know 5 is a less. okay? And if I'm using the actual symbol, the less than symbol, it would look like this. And I can still, again, kind of in my mind picture that there's the alligator teeth. It's pointing to the bigger number, the greatest number, and this little piece right here is pointing to the littler part is pointing to the lower number, the number that is less. Again, I would read it, 5 is less than 13, okay? So let's go ahead and try another number. Let's do 7 and 4. All right, 7 and 4. I have to decide which symbol am I going to put in here. Am I going to put the less than, greater than, or equal to symbol? First thing I'm looking for is which number is greater, which is the larger number. If I'm thinking of that number line, I know that 7 is a bigger number than 4. This is greater. I know that Mr. Alligator is going to chomp that greater number. His alligator teeth are pointing towards that greater number. All right, so I'm going to read again from the left to the right. I'm going to read it like this. 7 is greater than 4. All right, now if I'm going to put the symbol there, which symbol am I going to put in there? All right, I'm going to use, again, Mr. Alligator's teeth has to be pointing to that greater, larger number. And so again, if I want to put his alligator teeth there so that I know it's going to chomp the biggest number, and I would read it, 7 is greater than 4. Okay, let's go ahead and take the number 10 and 25. All right, 10 and 25. Which symbol are you going to use there? Which symbol? Which way is your alligator teeth? Which symbol are you going to use there? All right, so thinking about it, I know my number line. I know that 25 is the greater number. So I know that Mr. Alligator, Mr. Alligator, his teeth have to be facing the greater number. Now, it's kind of tricky because I can't say 25 is greater than 10 because, again, this is the symbol that I have to use. And again, I start from the left to the right and I read it this way. So I'm really looking at the number 10. Even though I know that 25 is greater, I'm really looking at the number 10. The alligator teeth just helps me figure out which way to turn my symbol. But when I'm reading it, I'm going to read it this way. 10 is less than 25 because this number comes first. When I'm reading it, it comes first on the number line. 10 is less than 25. So if I'm going to now put my symbol in here, I'm going to use the less than symbol. Again, my alligator teeth are turned towards the larger number, but I read it this way. 10 is less than 25. Now, what happens if I just flip those two numbers around? What if I put the 25 over here and the 10 over here? Then what am I going to do? All right, so I can't say 25 is less. I can't use that same symbol because my alligator teeth have to be turned this way. All right, so I can't use this symbol because my alligator teeth need to be turned the other way. Again, I start reading from the left to the right and I say 25 is greater than 10. All right, and my symbol is going to be the greater than symbol. Okay, this time I'm going to do something a little bit different. What happens if I have the number 24 and 24? What happens then? Well, both of those numbers are exactly the same. If you're looking at a number line, they're in the same spot on that number line. So we say that they are equal. They are equal. So we use the equal sign instead of the less than and greater than because one number is not higher or lower than the other. Even if I had 7 and a 7 or 100 and 100, it wouldn't matter. 7 and 7 is the same number. They are equal. They are the same. 100 and 100 is equal. They are both the same. So we just would put the equal sign in there to show that those numbers are the same. They're equal to each other. All right, this time I'm going to test you. I have some numbers up here and I want you to think about which symbol you're going to put between the two numbers. So let's take 15 and 4. 15 and 4. Think about which symbol. Also think about the number line. Which symbol is going to go in here? Okay, I'm going to give you a second to think about it and then I'll come back to it. 12 and 21, which symbol is going to go in there? And then 29 and 29. If you have Mr. Alligator, if you have Mr. Alligator poem to help you, then that's great. If not, you can just in your mind think about which number that you, or which symbol you would use there. All right, so let's go ahead and look at the first one, 15 and 4. I know that 15 is the greater number. Between those two numbers, I know that 15 is the higher number. So I know that my alligator teeth are going to face the 15, and so I know the symbol that goes in there is going to be the greater than symbol. And I'm going to say 15 is greater than 4. If I was writing the words, I would use greater than, but I'm using the symbol to help me, and that is greater than symbol. Okay? Now I'm going to look at this problem here. And the thing that's a little bit tricky is sometimes people don't look at the numbers closely, and so they think that the numbers are the same. So you need to make sure that you're looking at the numbers closely. So 12 and 21, which symbol am I going to use there? All right, in my mind, I know that 21 is the greater number, and I know Mr. Alligator's teeth are going to be turned towards the greater number, but since it's 12 is on this side, and I start from my left, I would say 12 is less than 21. 12 is less than 21. If I'm going to use my symbol, I'm going to switch it around, and I'm going to use that symbol. 12 is less than 21. Now I come to the last one, 29 and 29, and I know that both of those are the same number, and so that tells me that they are equal to each other. And so Mr. Alligator is just going to turn in the middle there and use the equal sign. And so I would just do those two lines to show that they are equal. So I hope that you're beginning to understand less than, greater than. It's really pretty easy once you really think about what symbol to use and when to use it. Just practice some more. You'll be great at it. And thanks for watching.